Welcome to the WedCopodcast, where wedding wisdom meets street smarts.
We're dishing out all the tips, tricks, and wedding goss to take your wedding to the next level.
Time to ditch the formalities and get this party started. Hello and welcome to the WedCopodcast. I'm Togga, and today we have Kiera from Creative Weddings Byron Bay on the couch with us. Thank you so much for coming down.
No problem.
I really appreciate it. It's because you're living in Byron, or whereabouts are you based?
I actually used to live in the area, but I don't live near the Byron area anymore. Through COVID, we decided to move closer to our family because we were on the wrong side of the border to our families. And so we've got a little hobby farm halfway between Brisbane and Toowoomba. So I just do everything remotely, and then I have my day coordinators that are local that run the wedding day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, maybe we can start with a little bit of a backstory behind your business yourself as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I used to be a chef. Yeah, sure. I used to be a chef, and so I've worked in events and catering my whole life and had kids and had to get out of the industry. And I had one of my chefs recommended that I look at becoming a wedding planner, and he had a friend that had a business that she wanted to sell, and so he connected us, and the rest is history. I did a business degree in between being a chef and being a wedding planner because I didn't know what to do with myself. And yeah, just kind of hit the ground running with it. Yeah.
Love it. And so how long ago was that, like, when you started it?
About 12 years.
Yeah, far out. Okay. So the industry changed a little bit in that time?
A lot, yeah. Even since I've had my wedding, it's changed so much. So yeah, it's amazing, all of the different styles that come in and out. Yeah.
So what services are you currently offering?
I offered 2 different packages just to keep things simple, the full planning from start to finish and a month out planning. So usually the month out is more aimed at couples that are either in events themselves and they know the ins and outs of it all, or just need somebody in the last leg to help wrap everything up and be there on the day to run things. And I on the side, I do sort of business coaching and things for industry vendors as well.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So like just within just the kind of specifically the wedding industry?
Yeah, usually. I mean, it really depends. It's because I know the industry inside out, and when I am booking vendors, I see big gaps in between, what their offering is and their client journey, and it really fails them sometimes. So what I do is I teach vendors how to set up their business to run really efficiently. So yeah, plus social media as well.
That's so good because, yeah, I guess that's another benefit of the podcast is like getting to speak to so many different people, and you kind of, because you have this overall view of how many people are doing different things, you can kind of pick little parts apart. Whereas like when it's just yourself, all you know is what you're doing and you're just hoping that this is the best, but you might not be doing all the things that everyone else is doing.
Yeah. But when I reach out for quotes for different vendors and they take like a week or 2 to get back to me, or they make a mistake or, miss something in the quoting stage, and I have to follow them up constantly, it's kind of, they're all creatives and they're amazing at what they do, but the admin side of things really fails them. So it's just about setting things up and automating certain things in their business and, just using different programs to help their business run really efficiently, and then they can sort of focus on the creative side.
Because I feel like that's such a struggle with people in the wedding industry. Like we got into it for photography. I love floristry. I love whatever. And then all of a sudden, like the business is, 75% of it. And then just the 25% is the part that you actually love.
Yeah. And it's all social media too.
It is. It's like that may as well be a full-time job, just like your social media these days.
Yeah.
But even that, like when I look at yours, I think I saw maybe a little reel from you as well where you were really talking, you might have been on a recent podcast, and you were talking about how you really wanted your kind of feed to kind of stand apart from all, like there are so many beautiful feeds out there.
Yeah.
And like, why are people going to stop on your feed?
Yeah. Or they would remember like, oh, I saw this beautiful wedding, but I just cannot remember where I saw it from. And you kind of just get lost in the sea of beautiful weddings. And it's all amazing. And there's so many amazing creatives out there. But it's about whatever you post, make it like a really strong brand. So when it comes up in somebody's feed, they know exactly that it's you. Yeah.
And is that, so that's something, have you consciously been doing this for a long time? Like really diving deep into this?
A solid year. I hired a business coach about a year ago, and we went really deep into the messaging and marketing and all of the branding and that sort of thing. and just really focused on like all savable stuff and shareable reels, just so people had all the education around it. So even with brides that aren't planning in Byron, they can save certain things and share things with their friends that will help them along the way with their planning journey.
Even like the Monday memes, yeah. Even like when I see those, like I still like flick through them.
Yeah, that I've been doing that for longer than I can remember, and it's got nothing to do with weddings. It's just a funny meme every day but people love it, and they sort of wake up each morning and there's something new. And my coach actually said recently, she's like, I need you to make it like a carousel so I can share these with my friends rather than a story. And so it just breaks things up a little bit. Yeah.
And I mean, it's just something like people are going to keep, because as soon as they're kind of scrolling through the carousel, then, whatever the algorithm's going to be like, well, you enjoyed that. So they're going to come back and be seeing more of your page more often. And they just know every Monday this is coming out as well. I'm going to see this.
Yeah. It's just consistency. It's just keeping, in people's minds, omnipresence,
And so when, say a couple comes to you and they want like the full kind of package with you, like from like planning from the start to the finish, how are you going about lining up? Like, do most people already have a venue locked in and then you're kind of helping with the vendors through the whole process?
Usually that's the case. I mean, a few couples come to me and they don't have a venue in mind either, and they want it right from the beginning. But usually they would go on the hunt for the venue first, and then they either had the venue and possibly a wedding date in mind, and then they start doing research and realize like, oh my God, this is too much. Like I need somebody to help. Or they come across venues that, that you require a planner in most of the venues in Byron. So then they're like, okay, I'll look around, and then they deep dive on social media, see all the different tags and the weddings that have happened at their venue recently, and then they come across me and it's all from there, yeah.
And so, like, how would the process? So they haven't booked in a photographer. So then, like you said, you might be going to get quotes from the photographers. Are you then sitting down with the couple and a photographer, like on a Zoom call or something, or is it you kind of then just pitch them like, hey, here's 2 or 3 photographers I like that I think would really suit your style, and then going from there?
Yeah, we usually have like a big chat about the overall vision initially. And I have a secret directory on my website that I send to couples just to start having a look at, like my hand-picked suppliers. And I don't like to have that live because I like to keep the list quite, small, just so it's not overwhelming for couples. And so whoever's on there is like tried and tested. They do an amazing job, and I've worked with them for years.
And you don't want like 50 emails every week being like, can I get on your directory?
Exactly. And I do anyway, and I try and keep it low key that I have that list. So don't come at me, everyone. But, it's more just like I would never just put on a photographer that I haven't had a rapport with. I have done in the past, I've reached out to other people that I know to see if they've worked with photographers. So it's not like if I haven't worked with you, you're not going on the list. It's more just like, and I put people on the list straight away as soon as I've seen their style. So it really depends on if it works with my sort of weddings that I offer and the brand and that sort of thing. So, but usually we start with booking in the key vendors that you can't easily replace, like celebrant photography, videography, and music. Those are so if you find a photographer that you love that you cannot imagine your wedding without that person, it's really important to get them booked in sooner rather than later. And same with like celebrant and music, that sort of thing. And then we sort of move on with the rest of the planning. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, no. Okay. Is there the wedding industry has been shifting a fair bit lately. Is there like kind of a key time that you think for these important vendors that you're talking about at the start? Like should they be a year out, 18 months out? Like, is there kind of a hard and fast rule at the moment?
Not really. I mean, I have planned a wedding within a month before from start to finish. So, but it's more about like a year is a good time frame just for availability and that sort of thing. Up to 18 months. I wouldn't take on a booking more than that because I know that the couple are going to change their minds on styling and vendors and that sort of thing 3 times throughout the process, which makes it really hard. But usually a year is a good amount of time, but it's more about revolving the date around the vendors that you love as well. So if you don't have a date initially, but you know that you really want a certain photographer or celebrant, check their availability first, and pick a date that aligns with the creatives rather than, a date that you pick out of the air.
I've actually had that happen a fair bit more often lately, and people are like, look, I'm thinking kind of June, July, like what are your availabilities about then? And yeah, it makes sense unless I guess the venue is like, this is a venue. I don't care. This is a venue I have to get married at. But but if it is like, you really love this florist work and I really need this, musician to play, like, check out with them first and see when they're available and then kind of book it around. Because otherwise it's so disappointing when, like my wife and I did that. We got married in Italy and we loved Frosty Photo. Like I've looked at his stuff forever. And we approached him. I'm like, look, we're going to be here between, whatever it was in September here and here. Like, when are you available? He's like, oh, the 16th. And we're like, cool, we'll have our wedding on the 16th.
Yeah.
Because that's like, we just loved his work and we're going to make everything else work around it.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise, it's just full of disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's just one vendor, that makes things easier. But if you're trying to line up a few vendors, it makes it a little bit harder. But it's more just if you have come across somebody that you really love. But if you haven't, then obviously work around your family and what they're after as well, because family is a big one that gets involved.
And like, would you have a, like, typical is not a good word, but like, a wedding that you would usually put together? Are you kind of, it's like, no, it's all very different?
It's all so different. It's all bespoke, and I won't replicate the same wedding over and over. I just find that so boring. It's the same. I mean, the venues that have all the included items definitely have its pros and cons. I think having included items is great, but I find that those venues tend to have the same looking wedding over and over, So the way that I approach that, if it's all-inclusive package, is that we utilise the included items but then outsource other bits and pieces. So like with table styling, you might have use the included plate but outsource some different cutlery or glassware or napkin, just to create something that's a little bit different. Otherwise it's all boring. It's the same thing over and over.
And that's what I keep saying, like, to stay in the industry, you need to do it just as much for yourself as for the couple. Like, if you're just doing it, if you aren't kind of growing and doing stuff that you really enjoy, it's going to be very easy to kind of fall out of love with it and you're just like, it's just work, like whatever.
But it's also the couple comes to you because they know that they're going to get something unique as well. And it's great to have inspiration photos of other people's weddings, but you kind of see it as an overview of like, okay, that's the sort of direction, more classic rather than like a boho sort of theme. But it's like the fine tuning of it is completely different.
We see you talk about themes, trends and themes are flowing like crazy at the moment. It feels like they're speeding up a little bit more. Is there anything within your, like I would say, like you kind of service the higher end market for sure. Like people, like all the weddings I see from you, like they're very, they're very elegant. There's a lot, they're beautiful, like beautiful weddings. And that's usually where the trends and the themes will kind of come through first and then kind of will trickle down a year or two later to other kind of, the not as high-end weddings, I'll say. Is there anything you're kind of seeing coming through at the moment that everyone's asking for? An espresso martini tower,
Yeah, well, just the cocktail towers are a big hit at the moment. I've seen that around for a little while though. Vintage is a big one. That's really coming back, the sort of classic vintage, not in the cheesy old school way, but just like that really minimalistic, toned down vintage with just those sort of really clever elements involved. Yeah.
And then, so are your clients mainly local, mainly interstate? Like how does that work?
Most likely they're interstate. Back before COVID, we were getting mainly Sydney and Melbourne crew. Through COVID up until recently, it was all Brisbane. And I feel like, and nothing against Brisbane couples, but the money wasn't there. So they were trying to come to Byron and have a champagne taste with a beer budget almost. And I hate saying that, but it's more just that we found that level of affordability wasn't there. But now it's starting to open up a little bit, but just because like everything was so expensive with flights and Byron's really expensive with accommodation, that sort of thing. So I'm finding that a lot of couples are focusing more on smaller weddings but done really well rather than like the big 100, 120, 150 sort of people weddings with like Sperry tents and things like that. They're sort of toning it down so they can have the elements that are really important to them and have it beautifully styled, but just for like 40 or 50 people.
I love it because I was going to ask about that. Like, if you see things shifting, do you think that is all to do like economy based, or do you think it's just it is okay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people still have the funds, even if with the economy, people still have the money there, and it's an important day for them. But I find that their priorities have shifted. Rather than inviting everyone that they know, make it sort of really personal and intimate with your friends and family. Yeah.
So people just coming through and they've just got engaged. Do you have any like tips for them? Like, hey, we just got engaged 2 weeks ago. Any tips for them? Like, you're just about to start this crazy journey.
Hire a planner straight away. I think the more research you do, the more overwhelming it can be. It's really important to do your research before you start throwing deposits down and that sort of thing, because people tend to not read the fine print on things. So like a lot of the venues in Byron have a earlier curfew and sound restrictions because of neighbours and things like that. So when they get halfway through and they're looking at musicians and they want like a 7-piece band, we're just like, oh, sorry, So it's really important to go into it knowing your budget roughly, or if that's flexible, and choosing the vendors based on what you're allowed to have at that venue, and weigh it up to see if it's important to you or not.
And do you find like budgets for weddings, are they saying a similar budget, like average, but they're just having less people now? Or okay, cool. Yeah.
And I don't like throwing out how much people spend on weddings and that sort of thing, just because it is how long's this piece of string, as you know. I've had people spend like on florals, like $2,000 on florals or $40,000 on florals alone. So it's really, you can do so much with it. But what I'm seeing is more intimate weddings, but same budget. Yeah.
Which is, it's good because there's a reason, we got married and it was like, cool, we want to have 40 people, but then as soon as one uncle comes, another uncle has to come, and then all of a sudden you've got 100. And we were originally going to get married in the Yarra Valley, and it was cheaper for us to fly with our immediate family to Italy and get married over there than what it was to have a 100-person, wedding in the Yarra Valley.
Yeah. And would you really want all of your uncles and everyone there as well? Like, is it that meaningful to have those extended family there? Like what my husband and I did, we got married like 9 years ago, but we split it up. We got married on a Tuesday, had 40 people, no cake, no bridal party, any of that, and then had a really beautiful, intimate wedding. And then through a party, like booked out a bar in Brisbane and invited all the rest of the people and had like a second reception, which was great. So mainly just because my husband doesn't like being up in front of so many people and being that vulnerable. So we wanted to kind of keep it simple and then, but still celebrate with everyone else. So I'm finding that that's really popular now too.
We did similar where we did a big engagement party.
Yeah.
And same thing, like you didn't even really get to speak to your friends very much because you're kind of going around saying hello to everyone. And same thing, got to the end of that, like, yeah, cool, it was a fun night, we partied, but so glad that we did the wedding the way that we did it as well.
Yeah. It just feels so rigid. Like it feels like you're just there on show and you can't really enjoy it properly. And have those moments. Yeah.
And so, like, what would, like, okay, so you talk about like people should really like personalize and, really make it not even so much just about them, but do it their way.
Yeah. To a point.
To a point, yeah. Like, So like, what is there any like kind of tips that you can kind of give to couples in that regard?
I'm really for couples enjoying the experience of the planning as much as the wedding day, because you could have an amazing wedding and have the most stressful experience, and what you're going to look back on is the stressful experience. So just keeping that in mind. And sorry, what was the question? I feel like I'm ranting.
No, it's great. No, it's just more so like how, like I feel like maybe a couple of years ago it was very much like your wedding your way and don't care about what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
It's kind of like trying to find that little bit of balance between like, yes, this is about you, but then also trying to balance that out as well.
Yeah. Well, family is a big one that gets involved. That is like you do it your way to a point, whereas you have to weigh up how many feathers you're ruffling through the process of not doing it, like not listening to people that are around you. I don't think that you should have to, but if it's going to cause more problems with family and, split family and dynamics and that sort of thing, then it's sort of weighing up what is more important as well and what you would compromise on. I definitely think that couples should do it their way, but not at a cost for, their future with all of their people.
I found like even, you don't want to play the age game, but like even when I was a little bit younger, the amount of things I'd push back on just to push back on things as well.
Yeah.
And then like say a thing like 8 years later, you're like, oh, it didn't matter at all. But like you just push back because it's like, no, this is our wedding. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really care, but it's just because you wanted
just
something.
Because. So just to stand your ground. And that's what I mean. You've got to weigh up if it's really that important. Like if you're like, no, I don't want a wedding cake, and your Aunt Betty's just like, no, I want to make a wedding cake for you. You're just like, sure, okay, like whatever.
Make the cake. I'll stand there.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't have to sort of like dig your heels in just for that if that means something to them and they feel, because they're your friends and your family, like they're the most important people in your lives. So it's just weighing it all up.
And then as far as like people kind of having the recoveries and everything, like the recovery days and everything like that, do you find the days are great? What I see a fair bit is people kind of wanting the whole weekend experience is kind of becoming more and more with the weddings that I'm doing.
That's always been a thing in Byron. And I guess that's the area. You can do that. It's a destination for your wedding, and it's got all of the facilities to do all of those pre and post gatherings. So that really hasn't changed. There's a lot of venues that have popped up that will, promote that that's what they offer in the area. We didn't have as many just because we were sort of restricted in certain venues being able to, and Airbnbs, you can't host weddings, and then there's that grey area with sort of post gatherings as well. So it's trying to get around that, but certain ones have popped up lately, which is great. And that's the attraction for Byron as well, just to make it that whole celebration weekend, because as you know, the wedding day goes so quick, and being able to look forward to multiple days, and then it takes the pressure off the actual day itself to catch up with everyone, because you're seeing them the day before and the day after as well. So on the wedding day, you can focus on the two of you and really sort of making that special.
Not just catching up with everyone.
Yeah, because it's not about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then with the like first looks and everything, I feel like, 5 years ago it was really big and then it kind of like went down again. How are you feeling about like first looks currently?
People don't take into consideration how many other things that affects, just with the timings of the day. So if you're doing a first look, you're going to be in hair and makeup that much earlier. You're going to have to hire your photographer for a longer period of time. You have to sort of shuffle a lot more around. And I love first looks if it's important to the couple to settle those nerves and have that intimate moment. I think that's beautiful. Same sort of thing with getting ready with your partner on the morning. All these traditions are so outdated anyway that if I really encourage couples just to scrap whatever doesn't mean anything to them, like walking down the aisle with your dad. If you don't like your dad, don't walk down the aisle with him, or walk by yourself or walk with your cousin or your uncle, somebody that means something to you. But first looks, I'm in two minds about that, just because it affects so many other things of the day that people don't realise. Plus lighting is a big one. If you have a 2:00 ceremony and you have like a 1:00 first look, the lighting isn't going to be great for those photos as well, because it's in the middle of the day. So once you sort of wait until a little bit later when the lighting's perfect, all about that. So yeah.
I've been finding some people are doing, or actually a fair few are doing kind of like they'll do their own personal vows, and they can either do it at a first look prior to the ceremony, and then at the ceremony they're kind of just doing the legalities there.
Yeah.
Or I've even had some people in the portrait shoot where they'll kind of, after the ceremony, they'll kind of get their congratulations and everything, and then they'll go and do their personal vows like somewhere else separate as well. And even that's like beautiful to kind of have their own little moment there.
Yeah. You can rework the wedding day to completely suit you. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is just the venue restrictions and what you're allowed to do. But you can do it backwards if you want and have the ceremony at the end of the night. You whatever resonates with you the most. And that's why having a planner on board to recommend certain, just to get to know you as a couple and know, if you're super nervous and introverts, then these are the things that we can do to sort of help that. And just little things along the way that you might not know that you can do. People get really caught up in like, do I have to have a cake? And I feel like saying like, yeah, that's like the wedding law sort of thing. But like you don't have to do any of it.
And I think that's like people myself included, like we'll think of a planner and like, yeah, cool, someone's going to organize my vendors for me and like take that hassle out. But it is so much more than just like, here's all the vendors you're going to need.
Yeah.
It's a completely different, like when all the little hints and tips that you're talking about there and just the guidance along the whole route.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not just booking vendors in. It's really, because each vendor is so great at what they do, but they're only focused on what they're doing. So having somebody that oversees the whole thing and filling in all of those grey areas and thinking of the things that you may not realize, like it's the first time that you're doing this, so you don't know what you don't know, so you're just sort of going in blind. Whereas if you have somebody that goes, we need to, when you're booking in a photographer, these are the things that you need to consider when you're sort of working out timings and how many hours, and if you get a second shooter or whatever, it's just sort of that guidance along the way to keep your sanity as well. Otherwise you're just like hardcore researching and you have no idea what you're doing and you're just booking in things willy-nilly, which you can do. Like it's not rocket science, people can plan their weddings, but it's just whether it's successful or not, or, whether you're sort of sane at the end of it.
Whether you actually had a good time or
yeah,
not.
exactly. And that's all you're going to remember if you're stressed out. So
yeah. Even I was speaking to Harley a little bit earlier, and we were talking about getting photos of the reception space before everyone enters, and that's a massive difference between having like a really good venue or having a wedding planner on board. Is like that time will be kind of cut out for you, because there's so many times you're out on like say the portrait shoot and you know that everyone's about to go enter over there, but there's just no time allocated to that as well, and so you're in two minds where like everyone's put so much effort into making this wedding so beautiful. I need to get those photos. But also these guys are paying me, so I need to stay here and get photos of these guys. And so it's so hard to know.
You don't want to take photos of people's with their bags on the chair or like missing chairs to put at the ceremony or anything. Like that's like a huge pet peeve of mine, missing chairs, like just to repurpose chairs. I try not to do that at all. But just like all the photographers love working with planners for that reason, because like it's all been thought of and you don't have to have that like choice on the day, like where do I go?
Exactly. Like do I work for the people that I'm going to get more work with over here and look after my other wedding vendors, or do I look after the clients who have paid me for today and look after them? Because sometimes they can be opposing on the day. It can be different things that you need to do. Yeah.
But it's also with the setup shots for the couple, they want to see how it looked before the guests get in there as well. So it's not so much the people that you'll get ongoing work with. It's what creates the whole story for the couple as well. So, when they're printing albums, they can have those full setup photos and really look back on it and not have somebody's handbag in the way.
A jacket over the thing, like, no.
Exactly. I don't know why photographers don't just take all of that stuff
the
off.
Stuff I've taken off and just put it on a couch and you're like, I'm sorry, but like
priorities.
But yeah, and it makes the biggest difference. Like you said, they've been planning for 12 months and you've been planning with them, and like these are the flowers we've chosen, these are the table runners we've chosen, and now you have a shot with a handbag and a jacket over the seat. Big, awesome. You know what I mean?
And then so as planners we get these back and we're like, oh God. So, and it's so hard to use because you want the complete look for future couples as well, but then it's also for the couple that just had their wedding. You're just like, oh, can't get that back, so.
Okay, so people trying, I'll go from a vendor perspective for a second. So you're not letting anyone else onto your list, so don't worry about that. But like I say,
I am. It just, there's certain things that I look out for.
What things would you look out for, let's just go from photo and video side of things, or say just photo and make it easy.
Photo, video would be similar. The biggest pet peeve I have with vendors that contact me, they don't do the research. They'll misspell my name. They'll be like, hey, Creative Weddings team, or spell my name incorrectly or not put in the effort. It's like just this stock standard thing that they're just like putting out to everyone. And I don't even answer 99% of them just because I'm like, if you can't put in the effort, I'm not going to, like, I'm busy and I'm not going to write back to you. Just like put in the effort with a planner, build a rapport. Don't ask them for a cup of coffee to catch up. We're all busy and we don't have time to sort of do that constantly. But like I booked in a call with a videographer that reached out to me purely because of her approach. She had a personalised video embedded into the email, like, hey, Kiera, like this is a bit about me and that sort of thing. And it just stood out to me so beautifully that I was like, yeah, I'll give them my time for sure. Like, and I jumped on a call and had a bit of a chat and gave some guidance and that sort of thing with them to just think outside the box and do your research. Don't just like blanket email everyone and copy everyone into one email just because it's like there's no use. They're not going to reply. So,
and even by that stage, by the time you get this embedded video, like you probably haven't even looked at her work yet, but already you're like, I really like this person.
Yeah, it's the approach. It's really showing that niche and your approach to couples and vendors that you take the time to get to know that client or that vendor.
Because if they've done that for you, they're probably doing that for their clients.
Exactly.
Like realistically, if a lead's coming through, they're probably doing something very similar to like, hey, couple, thank you so much for the email.
Yeah.
And like they would be loving that. And then I've talked about this before, but like everything from you being a planner, everything almost ends up falling back on you. So it kind of comes back to like, you're not going to recommend photographers you don't know or can't get recommendations from. If anything kind of goes awry on the day, as bad as it sounds, it kind of falls back on you.
Yeah, and that's why the list is tight. And I've learned the hard way with that, and I like to work with the same, and it's a big enough list for people to look through without it being overwhelming, but it's really tried and tested. I know how they work, and even though there's some on there that I have to chase for quotes and follow up, and it's frustrating, and that's why I've started doing the business coaching as well. It's just that reputation is so important, because if you've recommended this person and if they've failed or not done the right thing throughout the process, it's on you for sure.
And do you find that has happened in the past? Like it just someone falls through the cracks and you're just like.
But people make mistakes as well. So like I've made plenty of mistakes over the time as well. That it's a learning process, and you really have to, as long as you're improving and you're looking at those grey areas where you can improve, it's you can definitely work with different planners without sort of being blacklisted.
So you have access to a fair few. I'll keep on the kind of the vendor side of things. You have access to a fair few different vendors contacting you and with the people you recommend. What would be one big thing where you think vendors could kind of lift at the moment to provide a better experience for their couples?
The client journey. It's so important. It's you look at it from start to finish. Like first point, how do they find you? Like, if they're finding me through all the different tags and like social proof on Instagram, how does that page look and stand out? Then how do they contact you? Is that easy? And then what's how quickly do they hear back? And then what information do they have? And you sort of map it out from start to finish, the whole booking process throughout the whole journey. And then post-wedding as well, what they receive. And if they're just really looked after, that's the most important part. And that's where all the systems and processes come in place, that you can automate certain things. Like on Instagram, you can use ManyChat, so you can, comment a certain word and then you can automatically get sent an information brochure like that. It's just being so accessible without that burnout for the vendor, because the vendor doing everything manually will just be like, oh my God, this is hard. Like, I don't want to do it. Whereas, you can put in the work to set all of this up and then it just runs like clockwork.
Do you do much of that? Like, is that a weekly or a monthly thing where you are kind of trying to build that out in your own business?
I've spent years building that out, and I'm always sort of looking at different programs to improve that. My job is a lot more personalised, so I don't really automate things, but it's set up in a way that it really supports me, so I can do a lot of weddings and I don't get burnt out. But like I spend a solid 40% of the work that I do on marketing. Yeah, it's a big part, and I can focus on that much of marketing because I've set up these systems to support me.
What would your marketing entail?
Well,
like apart from
Instagram.
Everyone
oh my God.
Instagram, Instagram. That's a big majority of it at the moment.
Yeah. Well, it was for me, and then everything changed a couple of weeks ago. I've just got my page back, but it got disabled. And that was extremely humbling for me. I was like, oh my God, everything's on there. Like, who am I? I'm just like, I've disappeared from the face of the earth. I was really like, I had a full pity party there for like a week. And then I was like, right, okay, let's look at the pros of this. And then it really gave me the time to upload lots more albums on the website and really beef up the website. So and fall back on my reputation and word of mouth and that sort of thing, which is a big part of it. So then even though Instagram's down, they can still access me, and I've sort of put up banners and things like that to let people know that I'm working on getting that back. But it's social media is just such a big thing because that's the first place that they're going to look. TikTok, is a new up and coming thing. That's a whole different kettle of fish that I haven't explored yet. I've got the account, but I haven't sort of dipped my toe too much in that. But just social media, it's social proof. It's how people know that you are who you are. And Google reviews is a big one as well. I find that people get scared of Google reviews just because they can't take certain ones down. Whereas if you're just consistently amazing at your job, then you shouldn't have to sort of worry too much about that. But it's just about having that proof that you are amazing and that they have to book you.
And it's so easy to get Google reviews now. Like it used to be kind of be a bit harder, but now it's like this, a canned email after the wedding, like, hey, because most of the time, like realistically, the day after, the couple they love it. Like, thank you so much for my day. It has been amazing. Yeah. And like, if you can send an email with they answer like 2 or 3 days after their wedding, and they just click on this link, they're just like, I had an amazing experience. Perfect.
Yeah, while it's still fresh.
Yeah, exactly. Because then, a month down the track, it's a little bit harder. Like, we'll get to it. And but we're back at work.
And then they can't remember half the things as well. But like even using those reviews in different ways as well, like you can screenshot a text or screenshot the Google review and do it as a carousel or a story or a reel on social media. So you're sort of constantly showing people that you're amazing. So, yeah.
I'm just currently doing like a little marketing course. It's like Engage Creative. I interviewed them maybe a couple of weeks ago. And same thing, I'd never really thought, like, for me, it's like, cool, I've got to plan this post for Instagram. And I'm like, cool, I did it. And then it's like, that's it. And it's like, but then it's like thinking about like, but where else could you, like, cool, you could have an Instagram post, but then that could also be a story. But then also that could be something on the website, or like there's so many different places to be able to repurpose that.
Yeah, but also reusing stuff that you've already created. From like 3 months ago, you can recreate a reel that you've made. Same concept, same information, but just done a different way, because most people aren't looking at every single thing that you post. You think that they do, but they don't. And it's just keeping it fresh rather than feeling like you have to come up with something different every day. But you can get a certain piece of information and break it down into so many different things, like carousel stories, blog posts, like email marketing, and just linking it all back. So, you don't have to overwhelm yourself with.
I'm kind of moving more into the email marketing thing. Like, obviously that was a big thing back in the day, for e-com businesses and everything like that. And to me, like, it doesn't on paper make too much sense, because cool, you're going to have this client for 12 months and then realistically they're not going to follow your Instagram, your email marketing after that point. Yeah. But even as far as like, cool, if I just send one, every month, and it's like, okay, here's a wedding I just did, and here's an album that I created, and here's a vendor I love working with. Like, you are still building so much rapport with that client leading up to that wedding day anyway. Yeah. And then chances are they've probably seen 3 or 4 albums that you've designed along the way. You haven't been trying to sell that to them. You're just like, these are albums that I've been doing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, maybe I need a wedding album. Yeah. So it's like there is so much benefit in doing it. And then also maybe they will keep following your email marketing list after.
They have friends.
Yeah, exactly.
They would go, oh my God, like I've got this guy that's like always in my inbox and he does these amazing things. I'll flick you across one of his emails, like it's word of mouth, and it's, as I said before, it's omnipresent. You're like everywhere, where this couple, think of how they can come across you at any point, sort of planting that seed along the way, through emails, through social media, through podcasts, yeah. Do
you have a team helping you out?
No.
Because I feel like this is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. I mean, I have day coordinators that run the weddings, but everything else I do. Yeah. It's I used to do all of the day coordination as well, and it just got too much. I can't sort of do the planning and be there on the ground and, shuffle all the things as well. And it's that work-life balance with having a family as well. And that's why we could move away from the area, and like I could be anywhere and do the planning, because it's all over Zoom calls, because they're all interstate couples anyway. And sometimes I go down to Byron if I need to, but usually it's all online anyway. So,
what's like an ideal kind of number of weddings for you a year at the moment?
what I've done versus what I'm
Yeah,
comfortable
okay.
with. I think the most I did in 1 year was like 80. It was crazy. Like as a one person, like that's a lot of weddings for without having a team. And that was more through after COVID, and we're doubled up with the amount of weddings that were happening, just with all the postponements and that sort of thing. But for me, I think 40 to 50 is a good number. Anything more than that is stretching a bit thin. And you know, I like to have a life as well. And, you know, I've got a million animals that I have to look after, plus the kids and the husband. So
I thought that was the animals
it's a
you're
lot.
talking about.
Yeah, they all blend in together.
And then the on-day coordinators, are they like kind of freelance to you, or is that like a team that you have that it's kind of pretty regular, same people?
Same people, but still freelance. So it's through I outsource through another business in the area that they have the staff and the manpower available, and I just pay their staff. So we sort of do a bit of a handover the week before. They look through everything. We answer questions and that sort of thing. And then they're like the wedding ninja on the day, just running the show based on what we've put together.
Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. And then like, I mean, yeah, it's all weddings aren't the same, but like by the time you can actually give them a good rundown of like, this is exactly what's happening. They know the process. They've done weddings.
Yeah, and my like planning documents are really highly detailed. So it's all broken down, and the run sheets are like 3-4 pages long, and you know, so it's all in there. So they don't really have to sort of question bits and pieces because I note everything down for them.
Well, like, do you want to touch any more about your like coaching? Because like I didn't actually know that about you, that you did like the coaching side of things.
Yeah, it's still new. I'm still sort of dipping my toe in it, and it's word of mouth at the moment because I don't, and you wouldn't know because I don't like to cloud that on social media. I don't want to sort of, you know, like have people question like, is she a planner or is she like a business coach? Like, so I keep it all offline and through email marketing and word of mouth. I just sort of chat to different vendors, and I could easily call up the vendors that I know that need the help. But I don't like to cold call. It's more just because I'm chatting with these vendors on a regular basis anyway, and I ask them how their business is doing, and we sort of naturally talk about it. And I was like, well, we can jump on a strategy session. I can sort of take you through the whole thing. And that's like repeat business as well. So people like my friend last week, she's like, can I jump on a session with you? Like just help set this part up in my business. And I'm like, yeah, no worries, you know. And so it's just tackling it. But I find that most people need the help around social media because you need somebody just to say, like, do this will work, you know, because I've sort of done the testing and everything over a solid year. I know sort of how, like, still learning, but how it all works. And they just want to know how to promote themselves. But then once we dive deeper, I'm just like, okay, so then what? You know, like once you've got like, is your business set up? If you've got like 50 leads that come in today, is it set up to support you? You know, like how would you feel about that? Like which areas would you feel that is lacking in your business that you wouldn't be able to keep up with that amount of demand? And then we sort of dive deeper into that and sort of, move forward.
That's cool because like as much as we talk about brides and grooms being overwhelmed with planning, I feel like running our businesses can be so overwhelming as well because it's like, well, there's so many things to do and I'm going to do none of them except post this random post on Instagram. You know? Yeah,
but also like confuse your messaging and post a photo of your coffee or you at the beach and then a wedding, and it's just like there's no strategy around it, and you have to really focus on your niche and fine tuning and really speaking into that to make yourself look, you know, different online. Otherwise you're just a part of the sea of beautiful weddings that happen, and then a random coffee shop when you're like
yeah exactly. And that's the good thing about the podcast I was talking earlier as well, is like it's just content, you know. And like people, there's so many amazing vendors now. It's like you need something else apart from your work to make you stand out.
Personality is a big one.
Everyone's like, and then it's like, okay, cool, but I want to put stories of me hanging down the beach with my family because I feel like that's, you know, people getting to see me. But then it's also like, yeah, but it's also the work. It's so hard to know, you know, do I include the thing of the coffee or do I not? And like there's so many different angles to take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could do the thing with the coffee, like you're about to have a meeting with a couple and you know, list out your strategy around like what you're going to be covering in your meeting. You like an actual purpose of why, like think about what it is that you're posting that for. Is it an ego thing, like, hey, I'm on holidays and you're not? Or is it, you know, like actually giving value to the couple and a reason why they would want to book you?
And even like, I feel like so many things that we do as a business and as people would love to do that as a job. Like what you do for a job, you like you've done it for so long, like there's aspects you don't think are special. But like when you travel down to Byron and you're planning a wedding and you're doing this and this, like people are like, how does she do that?
Yeah.
And then you don't put it on social media because you don't think it's special.
Yeah.
But people would actually love to see that.
Yeah.
And there's like, the things that people react to on social media where it's kind of just a throwaway whatever. And people are like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, just have a strategy behind it. You know, like the day-to-day life is a good thing. You could say like setting up, like, how does today look for me? You know, what's in store? I've got like a strategy session with a vendor. I've got 3 planning meetings. I'm doing a styling brief, and you sort of list out the things, and I'm able to do this because of this and this, these systems. You know, it really depends on what you're marketing. That could be more for business coaching, but, you know, and that's why I like to post a lot for couples to save certain reels and share things like, you know, top 20 song choices for your processional song. They could Google that, but having one page where they can go to that has a full list of all the songs that are really popular for weddings, they're like, I know who I can go to for that. But half the stuff you can just Google yourself anyway, but people are lazy as well. So like, you know, it's good to sort of add value to couples rather than just posting for the sake of posting without any strategy.
And that comes back to your marketing, like where you're thinking about like little topics like that you could be like, or maybe I could put something like this together, to get people through to the website.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's social proof. So it's like posting weddings that you've done for inspiration. It's, you know, adding value so you can create playlists and, you know, like run sheet templates and whatever. There's going to be certain ones that go viral and, you know, become really popular, but they won't get you the bookings either. It's just like people are like, oh, great, I've got a song list. Whereas, you know, the ones that you're selling your services will always have a lower engagement because also Instagram doesn't like you selling stuff without you paying for them. So they're going to drop that engagement, but that's what's going to get you the bookings as well. But just so you're not selling in every post that you do, breaking it up to sort of hit those other, you know, elements just to sort of have a bit of variety.
One little last thought as well is when you talk about, okay, so you're coaching, which is amazing. Do you think that gets you more bookings with clients? Because obviously they're looking like you are a leader in your field and now you're teaching other planners how to do their job. Do you think that builds like more authority that people are coming to you more for planning services? No, I think that's they're two separate things, and that's why I don't want to blend them together. My authority in the industry is like I've been around forever and you know, I've worked with all of these vendors and they know my process and they know how thorough I am. So that in itself is that social proof with the vendor side. So I can just do that with word of mouth and they have that trust already because they know that I can deliver with that. Whereas having it as completely separate, like couples are only going to be right at the beginning of their journey when they stumble across you. So they're not going to know that I'm an, you know, industry professional that have been in the industry for so long. They're going to go, oh my God, I like that wedding that she did. I'll call her, you know, so it's tapping into two really different markets. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. And then where can people find you when they want to get married?
Well, through Instagram now that that's back up and running, but yeah, Creative Weddings Byron Bay. And you know, it's got all the links on there. Otherwise, my website is weddingsbyronbay.com.au.
Beautiful. Any more parting words?
No, I think we've covered it. Yeah,
that's pretty good. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it and taking the time.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the WedCopodcast. We're dropping a fresh episode every week featuring industry professionals dishing out the wedding wisdom you need to turn those dreams into reality. Make sure you are following us on social media, you have those notifications turned on so we can help plan your wedding day. Your dream wedding day just got a whole lot easier. Thanks for listening.